Hi, and welcome to another episode of the History of Fan Anime. I'm your host, William Chow, and in today's episode, it's going to be a little bit more of a technical episode. I'm going to go over the differences between what we did in fansubbing, which is known as linear fansubbing, as opposed to non-linear fansubbing. Now, it's very similar to those people who are in graphical editing, what the difference between linear editing and non-linear editing. It basically means that linear, meaning in a straight line, you basically do everything in a particular order, okay? And obviously non-linear allows you to basically perform edits and changes in one spot and then be able to jump to another spot that may be non-sequentially either after the sequence or even before the sequence, and be able to jump back and forth between sequence to sequence, irregardless of where they are in the timeline. Okay, now in this particular time, since the computers weren't technologically advanced enough to hold any proportion of the movie or the subtitles that we're trying to replace, everything we had to do was linear, basically meaning that we couldn't jump back and forth. We couldn't do many of the things that you could do nowadays with the modern computer. So I just wanted to cover that option because a lot of questions and sometimes a lot of criticism comes from the old time fansubbers because because a lot of the technological issues that came with the editing of the fansub. So I wanted to kind of go over this before we actually get into any more episodes about how fansubs evolved from the past to how they are now. That'll be covered in another episode. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to hit subscribe below, and then we'll cover that into a future episode. Basically the evolution of how fansubs came from what we used to what you're probably now accustomed to downloading off the internet. Okay. So again, as I mentioned, linear means to do everything in order. And the reason why we had to do things in order is because not everything, the editing and the video and the audio and all that stuff was all together in one place, like in the computer. Again, the computers were too slow. They didn't have enough hard drive space. As I covered in a previous episode, they didn't have all these technological advances that we had now that allows us to do massive edits to a particular copy. So we had to actually separate and put all these different pieces into different machines. Have each different machine or different peripheral or device handle a different part of the subtitling process, whether or not that's applying the Genlock videos, the titles to the actual screen, whether or not that's actually controlling what text is being shown on the screen, whether that's actually recording the final output that we see on the screen. They're all taken care of by different devices. So it's very important that we synchronize this linearly in time, because all these devices are all doing a different job, and it's up to the to the fansubber in this case to control when and precisely when each of these jobs need to be done. Okay. So if we make a mistake, obviously we're going to have to basically stop all the processes and then go right back to the beginning and have to do it all over again. Okay. Now a typical example would be like, we'd have to press play on the Laserdisc player over here, and that starts the video going. And then at a certain point, we're going to have to start the computer to cue the subtitles. So maybe right when the opening credits start or something like that, we'd have to smack the space bar here and get that to start when that's supposed to be going. We also have a VCR or an SVHS deck over here, which we also have to press record, play and record over here to make sure that's running and make sure that's all going. You also got to make sure the Genlock's synced up. So if you need to change levels of the intensity of the fansubs that are appearing on the screen, then you might have to adjust that really quickly. So basically, you might need like an octopus have many hands going. It'll be really quick. So like play over here, press space bar, quickly cue up the title to the right intensity, and then also press record over here to kind of get everything going. So it's kind of like bing, 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 boom, right, kind of thing. And it's very important to get that all timed together, so that all of the subtitles will be consistent from timing to timing, as well as be lined up, because obviously you don't want the subtitles appearing too soon or too late to match up with the person's dialogue, because then all the dialogue is all out of sync, and then people start complaining, your subtitles aren't timed correctly, and oh, they're out of sync, and this and that and whatever. But again, that's one of the problems that we had, because the computer can slow down due to processes in the computer, and therefore the time slightly shifts a couple of fractions of a second one way or the other. We have to make the manual adjustments. Obviously, we also had issues where we timed it to a certain degree correctly in the first run, but then the second run it's not quite lining up again, so we may have to do it again, or sometimes due to the fact that we're pressed for time, we just leave it the way it is. It's close enough. Okay. So again, that was sort of what the things that we had to do and what we're exposed to non-linear or linearly. Non-linearly was what you would be exposed to using the modern Fansubbing program. So any person who has used something like iMovie, for example, you are able to put subtitles everywhere and anywhere, multiple subtitles going on at the same time. You could put graphics, you can change the font up and down, lots of transitional effects. You can start at the beginning and work forwards, and jump to the end and work backwards, and you pick a scene out of the middle, do that one. You can go do anything you want, really any time and with any part of the video as you wish. And that's basically how non-linear editing works. And again, you can see the advantage of this is because obviously if you make a mistake, you can still correct it, you can erase it, multiple undos, no problem, right? So a lot of technology advantages. However, this has led to shall we say over Fansubing. I mean, there's some things. There's only a certain amount of time that a reader has on, to actually see what's on the screen and basically read what's necessary to read on the screen. There are obviously, if you put too much onto the screen, there's no way that a person could really, gather all this translation, footnotes, subtext, translations of signs, and all this stuff. How can you actually get that when you're trying to concentrate on the movie? You got 2, 3 lines of text usually to read at the bottom, and then you give them extra text to read at the top, and oh yeah, sure, you could rewind it and all this other stuff. But in some cases when you're streaming, you don't want to be doing that. It has to be rebuffer, reload, and it kind of interrupts things. But again, each to his own. Everyone subtitles a certain way. Great, okay. But again. I'll get into that in another episode. So again, go to the below there, press subscribe, and we'll get into an episode of the evolution of how Fansubs have changed because of technology. Okay. So again, one of the key comparisons. Now I'm going to compare the two. One of the key things that is advantageous about non-linear editing is again accuracy. You see, you're able to, because you have all the components of the video, the audio, and all that stuff all together in one place, you can edit it and it'll be correct from one run to the next. You can do multiple edits, you can undo your edits, and make the correction until it's literally perfect to hundredths of a second if you wanted to. Again, linearly, difficult to line up, because obviously if one of the pieces of equipment isn't operating quite properly, or you didn't quite hit the play button over here and hit the space bar over here exactly at the same time the first time you ran it against the second, same time you ran it the second time you ran it, obviously it's going to be a little bit off, and then you have to restart again. And again, sometimes you may not be able to see that it's gone off, or the timing has wandered off until 20-30 minutes into the video, and then you realize, holy crap, all my subtitles are off by a second, and then you realize, oh well, I gotta live with it, or no, I'm gonna have to stop everything, rewind the tape, rewind everything again, put your cue back to the beginning of the text file again, and then start at 0 and start over again, play over here, and try to hit that spacebar again the right time at the same time you hit it the first time you ran it and made all the edits, and hopefully everything lines up. Okay, how much time you want to spend on it? Well, okay, that's up to you. But some people just don't want to watch the episode, 5 times or 6 times doing the edits, because that, obviously that's consuming lots of time. Again, I'll get into the process of the actual subtitling in another episode, so hit subscribe and I'll go over the process on an episode. I did go to SacraCon one year, and I did a sample timing of a G Gundam episode, and basically kind of illustrated some of the processes that happened, some of the actual raw timing that would be done, and also kind of by purpose made some mistakes, to show you examples of things that could happen while you're timing, and some mistakes that could possibly happen. Again, I'll get that into another episode when we're talking about conventions and that kind of stuff. Okay, so hit subscribe. There's lots of content left to do too. Okay, okay, and so continuing along here in the comparisons. Obviously, editing, non-linear editing, obviously, is the way to go, because again, you can edit in any order, and you can jump back and forth and make changes as you artistically feel. Whereas in linear editing, the best that you can do is edit the last part of it. Okay, you can't go back and edit past a certain part. So, for example, you've subtitled a TV series and you've already gone past the let's say the CM point. If you're satisfied with everything up to the CM point, you could obviously go back and edit starting from the CM point forward. But if you've already secured the second half of the TV series to the ending credits, you can't go back to the point before the CM to fix that, because obviously that will affect how long or how time that you would put in before, that goes after. I'm not saying you can't. It does require some precision editing, and sometimes the flying erase head can't get that accurate, and you can start erasing stuff that you actually wanted to keep. But theoretically, it's possible. Much more difficult. And a lot of times, it was just much easier just to rewind the stupid tapes and rewind everything again and just re-record it. Okay, so a lot of extra work there. Okay, and lastly, the major comparison is, of course, quality. On linear editing, the only way that you wanted to try to reduce the amount of editing that was required, i.e., less post-production, okay, is that every time you made a copy of a copy, it would reduce the quality of the video, because obviously VHS tapes was an analog method of recording. So therefore, when you record from one tape to another tape, you're losing quality, you're making the video worse, you're losing colors. You wanted to avoid that, so you didn't. So once you've got your properly timed episode, you don't want to start adding stupid graphics that show up all over the screen, and fancy text lines that go here and there and all that stuff, because again, you're gonna have to copy that over from another tape onto this one to add the titles and that kind of stuff. So again, we don't want to degrade the video another generation just because you aren't adding all this fancy crap. Okay, just stick to the titles, get it done, get it on the screen. Try to be as plain Jane as possible. That's how you had to sort of do it. And and it worked fine for that for that generation. Nowadays, non-linear editing allows you to, of course, put in the subtitles first, put the character lyrics first, and do the actual translation later. You can sit here and translate signs and all that kind of stuff first, and then you can put in the translation afterwards. You can put subtitle text and footnotes and all that kind of crap all over. It really gives you freedom to do all that. Not necessarily meaning that's a good thing. Okay, again, I'll get into episodes where how Fansubs have evolved, but again, non-linear editing does allow you to do that. Okay, so again, the reason why we had to do linear editing is not really by choice. It's basically because the fact that the equipment that we had at the time just doesn't allow us to do anything. It doesn't allow us to do nonlinear editing. I mean, we could probably do it, but it would require much more expensive and much higher quality equipment that that would be equivalent to what a TV studio would use. It's just it is already vastly expensive undertaking to get into fan subbing at this time, and to even add more cost to that just so that you can do some graphical some graphical inner things and that kind of stuff was really adding frivolity to the video at this point. So that's why a lot of the time videos and fan subs that you see during this era, that didn't occur. Okay, so. And again, to the fans' advantage, that's probably fine, because again, they were just more interested in getting some new anime that they could see, getting it quickly, because they're hearing about these titles, they're seeing these titles in the video magazines and that kind of stuff, but they just want to see it. They've got to get their hands on it, and then once they get their hands on it, they want to be able to understand at least some of it. I mean, again, translations was a scarcity at this point, and with the anime coming out as quickly as it was, you want to be able to match that speed with that. And again, not everyone was able to have internet access or video access to get this kind of stuff. So that's very important. Okay, so that's one of the things that Arctic Animation tried to do is try to meet that demand with speed rather than accuracy. But again, each to his own, and that's the difference between various different fan subs and their styles, if you will. And in retrospect, I'm happy with that decision, because now with virtually everything that we released, is now commercially released. I won't say everything, because there are some things that still. Commercial companies haven't picked up on, but for the most part, they have made new digital versions of them, which are will stand some test of time anyway. That's for sure. Okay, so if you want to contact me, leave me suggestions or some notes. My contact information is directly below here, so you feel free to shoot me an email or a text or whatever. That's fine. You can do that. The second way that you can participate in this video is I like to wear ball caps, and you can send me a ball cap of your team, and I'll give a shout out to a player that's on that team and give them a suggestion for an anime to watch. So I'm wearing a Toronto Blue Jays cap today, and the player that I'm going to give a shout out to is Jose Bautista. Okay, so he's your all-star bat flipping player. And so I'm going to suggest a flipping anime. So when I think flipping, I think of fan service flipping. And the biggest fan service show that I can think of right off the top of my mind is Agent Ayaka. All right? So if you're looking for a special agent, a female one, with lots of gratuitous fan service, this is your anime. Agent Ayaka, 2-episode OAVA. Have a look at that one. And then if you really like that one, there is more. So, again, have a look. Agent Ayaka. Okay, so until next time, see you again.